denying access by saying, oh, it's only on paper, so you have to come in and view it. You can look at it on paper. That's not how it works. And I would suggest that if the county doesn't want to face another lawsuit from its citizens, that maybe you guys might want to tighten things up a little bit on the FOIA end, okay? Especially with that certain department. Mr. Patterson knows what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. You have a good evening.
Ms. Pat Davis.
There were only 4. Okay, does everybody have one? Yeah, that's a screenshot of the county website. And, I'm Pat Davis. And I wanted to talk about the lack of notification that the early voting location changed. Now, I happen to know through the grapevine that the registrar's office had moved. A lot of people didn't know that. In fact, I was talking to somebody yesterday morning, and they said, oh, I didn't know it moved. Well, it did. And there was conversation this way and conversation that way on Facebook about early voting takes place in the government building. No, it doesn't. It takes place in the gym. No, it doesn't. It takes place in the registrar's office. Well, isn't the registrar's office at the government building? No, they moved. So that went a couple days. I put on there what I thought, then somebody else came back at me and said, no, it's this way. There's nothing on the website until it was either this morning or yesterday morning at 8 o'clock that they posted on the website where the early voting should take place. The problem I have with it, and I have to have a problem about something now that diode went away, you have to look at the very top of the screen, and there's a little stripe up there that says attention, new voting location, click here. And then you have to go to another page to see. But if you look at that page, there's a big advertisement for Market 5 goes pink. Shouldn't the change in voting location take precedence over Market 5 going pink? If the voting location change, which is something that's important to everybody, I would think it would be front and center on the website. I don't know who's in charge of it, whether it's the registrar's office or the county, I have no clue, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Ms. Irene Churns.
Hi. I may have a slight solution for you as far as the budget. The current population in Charles City is estimated to be less than 6,700, so 6,700, okay? This is according to U.S. Census Bureau. As of August 21st, 2025, 5,868 of these citizens were registered to eligible to vote. This is per State Board election website, which is 88% of the population. This is considered the maximum percentage of age eligible voters. Basically, Charles City has registered everyone they can. This is, according to the Code of Virginia, this is election law, 24.2-112, in the county or city whose population is over 15,500, there shall be at least one deputy registrar who shall serve at least 1 day each week in the office of the general registrar. This means they would be part-time. Charles City has less than 15,000, almost a third of that, people, so they are only required to have someone who can be called in an emergency when needed, like now, early voting. But this is not a full position. It's just required for special events, early voting again. Another law, 24.2-112A, paragraph 4, states, any county or city whose population is 15,500 or less than shall have at least one substitute registrar who's able to take over the duties of the general registrar in an emergency and who shall assist the general registrar when needed. But since the county is looking for ways to trim the budget, I suggest a look at the waste in the registrar's office. We currently have 2 full-time employees working under the registrar, when the state mandates have 1 part-time employee. It is the county who pays the salary of the registrar's employees as well as their benefits. Now, during their early voting, what they should be doing is scheduling, electoral board members probably, scheduling the election of officers to come in to help during the early voting. And they get paid hourly by the county. And I tell you, that's much less than a full-time worker there. So anyways, just something to think about. Here it is.
Ms. Martha Harris.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of a group. Last month, I provided a list of questions regarding the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with our schools. On September the 7th, I received an email. However, the email did not provide any specifics to the questions I posed. I just noticed tonight that on September 17th, I was sent an email requesting a meeting with the county administrator. I will follow up with you on that. My suggestion is that when we pose questions to the Board of Supervisors, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, that the board respond directly to our questions. If y'all don't respond, at least review the email before it's sent to us, the taxpayers. Had you received the email sent to me, you would have noted that the email did not address my questions. To answer that the county administrator and superintendent are new to their position is an excuse. And to use an excuse is unacceptable, particularly given that the MOU was entered into over a year and a half before the county administrator or the superintendent assumed their roles. And as far as the registrar's office, I'm hoping that you all have made sure that it is handicap accessible according to the ADA. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the public comment period. We'll now go to the consent agenda. I will need a motion, sir, to approve the consent agenda for the board appointments, the resolution for the VDOT secondary 6-year plan, resolution for the second quarter appropriations, and resolution for supplemental appropriation to accept the $150,000 in NG 911 grant funds and appropriate to the Sheriff's Office for the FY26 budget.
Gentlemen, you have the consent agenda before you. You have each section on it. What is your pleasure on approving the consent agenda, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
And that's your motion, Mr. Hill?
Yes, it is.
And your vote, Mr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
And my vote is aye also. Thank you.
Now we will have our reports. The county administrator's report, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and all gathered this evening. I wanted to provide some updates, beginning with the court-ordered forensic audit. This audit is currently underway. Staff has been in contact with Brown Edwards, which is the judge-selected firm to complete the audit. The document requests have been provided to staff, and we are working with the firm to fulfill those requests. Per the court's order, the audit is to be completed by December 31st of 2025. In addition to working on the forensic court order audit, we are continuing to make progress on our fiscal year 2025 audit, or our annual comprehensive financial report. Robinson, Farmer, and Cox is our audit firm, and we have completed our preliminary audit work, and we are scheduled to begin field work in the coming weeks. In regards to our financial report, the budget versus actual that was provided for the month of August, I wanted to remind everyone that we have updated the format of this report to provide a full accounting of all revenues that are received by the county, not just general fund, but that's also inclusive of federal and state as well. A few highlights from this type of report is it is unreconciled and cash-based. However, I would bring everyone's attention to, on the revenue side, please be reminded that our primary activity on revenues is related to property taxes, and this activity will occur for the first half in the month of December. Also of note, on the expenditure side, our Public Works Department completed multiple weather-related repairs to facilities and equipment during the summer months, which is reflected in the spending for that agency. In July, I shared with the board some short-term as well as longer-term initiatives which were designed to lead the county into a path of financial sustainability. The shorter-term control measures are currently underway, and they include adherence to the Virginia Public Procurement Act, as well as updated practices regarding our P-card usage and expenditures that are in excess of $999. As we progress through this fiscal year, we will also continue to evaluate the cost of services for agencies to perform their functions, duties, in order so that we can be prepared for the fiscal year 2027 budgeting process. At that time, I also shared some longer-term initiatives, which included a strategy to avoid short-term borrowing, replenish our fund balance or our cash, to establish a rainy day fund, as well as to strategically commit to capital improvement planning, particularly as it relates to the county's infrastructure. So since assuming my role as county administrator, my team and I have worked with our financial advisors, Davenport, as well as Ms. Burrell from the Berkeley Group, to identify the source of the county's liquidity issue, as well as develop a strategy for financial sustainability. So tonight, I am pleased to have Davenport here with us to detail a pathway forward. I'm going to ask Mr. Rose to come to the podium at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, County Board. David Rose from Davenport. Ethan is one of my colleagues, and as Jan Johnson is here and taking some notes and has done some heavy lifting on all this. We do have a presentation up there. It's on the screen, and I will walk through that. By all means, just stop me as necessary. But I would like to say, from my 5th decade in this business, in here in Virginia, where I'm from, that you are making progress, but it's not, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's not going to get done in just 1 year. But I do think you're on the right trajectory, and I think you've heard some of that from your new county administrator. So with all that said, I'd like to talk this evening about follow through of what I had mentioned the last time I was here, and that was we were going to come back after we had the emergency RAN, that revenue anticipation note, and talk about a long-term sustainable approach and how we get there. So that will be my focus tonight, and I'm hopeful that by the time I'm done, I will have given you enough comfort that we can move quickly to get some of these things resolved. Again, we have been intermittently, as I said, financial advisors to the county. For those that had not been here before, we got an emergency call about a year and a half ago, my colleague did, and basically said, we're running out of money. We, of course, helped you get an initial RAN that was under previous administrations prior to Mr. Warner as well as the interim. And again, as we said in that bullet there, you had a material risk of illiquidity, and I made that clear. I also made it clear we weren't sure we would get some results back, but we did. Again, so I think the last bullet point is this. The decline in what was at one time a very solid rainy day fund, technically called an unassigned fund balance, was partially attributable to some decisions made by previous boards to utilize cash instead of debt to fund some capital projects. Okay, next page, please. So, what that required, as I mentioned a moment ago, was for the fiscal year 2025 and now here in 2026 to do an emergency revenue anticipation note at $5 million. This is something that, again, would have to be paid off by the end of June 30th, and that was done, but the hope was in 2025 not to do it. And to some of the individuals speaking tonight, they're correct. The goal was to get out of that problem, but it did not happen. So we got brought in, and we said we can't fix this in that short period of time, but we believe we can fix that or go very far into fixing that here in this fiscal year. And I'm delighted to say that we're making that progress. So what you're going to see in a few moments is what we'll call a sustainable long-term plan to end that use of the RAN. Maybe not all 5 million, that's the hope, but again, to make a very large dent into that RAN. If indeed, and I think this is the key word, if indeed, or the person, some of the people here that are responsible, if we're able to have a fiscal year 2026 balanced budget, and it is set up to be a balanced budget with revenues actually being greater than expenses. And again, I do believe under Mr. Rogers, he is monitoring this on a weekly, if not monthly basis. And as a result, there may be some surprises because it was not his budget. But again, we're making progress, or they're making progress. So next page, if you would. The other thing we talked about, and Mr. Rogers alluded to that, is there are other upcoming capital needs for both the general government and the utility system. I'm going to talk about the utility system tonight at some length, but with regard to the general government, there is a need to put together a capital improvement program, and that is something that is on Mr. Rogers' plate that we will talk a little bit about in the next few minutes. But again, what we need is to make sure that any capital that's being spent is being done so in such a way that we're not unduly depleting the cash balances of the county. Next page. So what is our long-term cash restoration plan? If you would, here it is. So when we took a deep dive, including with the county attorney's firm, the bond counsel firm of Sands Anderson, as well as the staff, and we very much appreciate all the hard work they did, what we were able to find was that over the past 3 years, the county has actually cash funded over $7 million of capital expenditures across both the general fund and the utility fund. Some of those projects were the 3 I've mentioned here, the fire station number 2, the Market 5 project, and the food pantry. All of those, the good news here, have useful lives at 15 years, if not significantly beyond. As such, the county can borrow money on a permanent basis and reimburse itself for some of those prior expenditures, in effect restoring the cash balances. Now, let me say this. We like the idea that local governments use cash in part to pay for capital projects. But here in this county, the pendulum got swung too far. Too much cash was used. As a result, it made a really difficult dent on the overall county's ability to easily pay bills and not have to use emergency funds. So again, part of our plan here is to restore some of that fund balance, and you'll see in a few moments what I'm talking about. Next page. So those are the projects. All of you, I'm sure, are far more familiar than I am, but I've actually visited and toured all of them. And again, they are projects that are here very sustainable in terms of their years. Next page. So what is the plan? As I mentioned a moment ago, we've identified over 7 million of eligible projects. However, we're not recommending that we borrow 7 million and reimburse ourselves. We're going to recommend that we do 5 million. And that 5 million, in effect, will go back into your fund balance, and/or if you want to think of it this way, it'll allow us to pay off that RAN earlier. We're thinking for the moment, as the monies come in with regard to taxation in December, probably sometime in the January, February timeframe, being able to pay off that RAN and not have to look to a RAN for the 27 fiscal year. Again, that's the goal. I cannot say with absolute certainty from a credibility standpoint that there won't be some need for some, hopefully a very small element of a RAN in 27, but for the moment, that is the goal, is to avoid and not have to use that. At the same time, in the 26 fiscal year budget, for the first time in the years that I've been looking at your budgets since the problems, there is roughly about $2 million of revenues that are expected to be able to go into or back into your fund balance on top of this $5 million. So what we're going to see in a moment is that where you are now and where we think you can be, if all of your expenditures and your revenues align the way you're expecting them to, we will actually be able to very quickly bring the fund balance back into a line with where it should be and has been several years ago. Next page. So the thinking here is to go out on the general fund side and borrow $5 million and refinance that over 15 years. I've heard some folks talk about restructuring of some debt. The reality is, for the moment, we don't need to do that. That would actually cost us some money. So again, I think we're best off here to borrow some new money and borrow it at what will be a taxable rate. And that's because the way it works, we're not able to borrow at a tax-exempt rate for this $5 million. Again, some decisions that were made prior to many of you and to us and to some of the folks talking to you tonight, including myself, we just can't help that. So that's the borrowing approach we're going to have to do. I want to point out as well that the question is, can we cut some expenses? I'm sure there is some expenses that can be cut. At the same time, though, we cannot cut $5, $6, $7 million of expenses, especially in 1 year, especially this quickly as it would be necessary. Could that happen over time? I'll defer to Mr. Rogers as he really starts to see how things shake out over the course of the next year or two. But that's not something that could be done in just a few short months. That's not real in reality. Okay, next page, please. So what is it going to be? There's a cost, of course, to doing this $5 million permanent financing. and that is basically about 500 to 550,000 a year, and that's the equivalent, that's the key word here, of about 5 cents in real estate. I'm not suggesting that's what you do, but again, I wanted to give transparency. I wanted the board to know and the citizens to know that when we convert over and we do this, there is, again, some dollar cost over time. However, here's the important point, and this doesn't get counted. When we reimburse ourselves and we build that unassigned fund balance back up, that rainy day, we're able to invest those dollars and we're able to earn interest on those dollars. We have purposely not counted any of those dollars towards some future budgets because, again, we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, but that is a reality. So I've used an assumption for the moment that we'll procure this money competitively, as we say, let any and all investment banks, brokerages, banks bid on this. We're going to simply recommend whoever provides the best interest rate and amortization structure, call provisions, put all that together and make some recommendations to you. Next page. So I said earlier I was going to show you where we are in terms of our available funds. And you can see there at the very top, I think graphically it's even easier, right there, the current situation. This is the end of a fiscal year. That's how it's looked at in the world of governmental finance, once a year. You can see there that we have less than 6% cash as a percentage of revenues, annual revenues. If indeed we move forward with our plan, that 6% will go to north of 26%. And if on top of that, the county is indeed correct in the way it's set up, its 26 fiscal year budget will add another couple of $1 million, or at least close to that. So our ultimate cash as percentage of revenues by the end of fiscal year 26 could look as robust as being near the peer group median of nearly 30%. Just to give you a perspective, the last time that you were at that level was about 5 or so years ago when you were in good position, when you were structurally balanced, and you were looking at borrowing for the fire station. And as a result of that, that was in good shape. The county was in good shape because you were right around that 30%, and you can see that's there by the peer group median. But again, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you can see there you are. It's why you're doing this short-term borrowing you did, the emergency, because you're well under any other local governments, and we got to change that, and that's what part of this restoration plan will do very quickly. Next page. So let's talk about future capital needs, all right? So one of the things that I mentioned, and it's going to be critical that we don't just use some of these funds, if they restored, back to paying for capital. So what do we have to do? Next page. What we're going to recommend and what we recognize is that there is the need for a multi-year capital improvement program. That capital improvement program is something that we've talked with the county administrator about, something that he is very comfortable and used to doing, and that is going from department to department, going to the school system over the next couple, 3 or 4 months in anticipation of the next fiscal year's budget, and getting and developing a holistic series of needs and timing of those needs, an estimate of those costs, and then putting together a capital plan that ties into, again, what are those costs going to be? And in transparency, it's going to be real. It's going to be dollars that we most likely do not have right now. So again, that's going to require a plan. But what we're suggesting, and what I think it's fair to say the county administrator and we are talking about, is that 3rd or 4th bullet point there. Coming weeks, he will be meeting with department heads, talking to the school system, trying to understand the timing, the breadth, not of wants, but of absolute needs. What's emergencies, such as HVAC replacement, a roof replacement, if there's a fire truck, whatever it is, we need to put all that together, show what it means, and show what it's going to cost so that the citizens, as well as you, the board, can understand this is what we're facing and this is what it looks like, and there's going to then be some strategies for how we will take care of that. Again, the thinking there, timing-wise, will probably be sometime in the mid to late first quarter of the next calendar year. So think about it probably in the February to March timeframe, both in advance of the March-April timeframe as it relates to the 27 fiscal year budget. Next page, please. So let me talk for a few moments now, as I said, about the utility capital needs, because the good news here is there's a little bit more focus on those capital needs. That's the good news. The bad news is they're going to cost us some money, and I want to go over that with the citizens and with you as the board. So there has basically been, as we understand it, 4 primary capital projects at this time. And you can see the names there, and we're going to go through each one of them in the next couple of moments. So if we go to the next page. So the first project is the Wayside Tank Project. It's got an estimated cost of about $3.3 million. The good news here is the county has been awarded a grant to, as I say, effectively fund 100% of those estimated costs. I am not an engineer. I've not been involved in the grant, but I'm just trying to relay for the board, for the citizens, where each of these projects stand. Again, this is as best as we understand it. The project is not subject to a DEQ consent order. That's the good news, and we understand construction will start in the near term. So again, that begets the question, could there be overruns? Could there be surprises? Yes, that's not my world. But again, if there are, I think what you all want and what you expect is the transparency, and that'll come from the administrator to provide you with updates on where these projects are relative to the grants and what the surprises may be. Next project, next page. Jerusalem Hideaway Force Main, again, supposed to be about $5.5 million. Once again, the good news here, like the previous project, it looks to be grant funded for 100% of the costs, also not subject to a consent order, and this is supposed to start in the near term. As you note there, the last thing I understand is it may be split into a couple of phases and last for multiple years. Again, all beyond my pay grade. I'm not an engineer, but that, again, seems to be something for the moment that we don't have to take into consideration when we look at funding for capital. Let's go to the next page. So now it changes a little bit. This Ruthville wastewater treatment plant replacement is estimated to be about $1.6 million. There is a consent order. It's already been exceeded by the deadline. But the county has gotten a grant of about $500,000. So what's necessary is to come up with another $1.1 million. Here's the potential good news, and I use the word potential. It is possible that the county could get a loan through what's called the state's Clean Water Revolving Fund. These typically have very low interest rates, sometimes as low as 0%. They could be even some potential principal forgiveness. That said, though, with the consent order, what we're recommending is that we move now simultaneous with getting that $5 million on the general fund side. We raise $1.1 million and do it on an interim basis so that if we get some or all of monies by the, let's say, the Clean Water Revolving Fund, we can then pay this off sooner. But that 1.1 will be critical right now to allowing you to move forward with this project. And that's the key, not kicking the can since you're already under a consent order. So that's the first one. Lastly, next page, the Government Center project. That's about $4 million. That's also under a consent order, has not yet been extended. Our thinking there is that there is potential as well for some grant monies, could be potentially as well for some of those other dollars. So rather than ask for all $3 or $4 million to bridge the gap, since it's going to take a while to do, we're going to recommend that we basically not only borrow the 1.1, but another roughly 1.5 million as well to take care of anything that this doesn't get some grant dollars or House appropriations, as well as, again, getting us started for both this project and the previous project that I talked about. So if the next page. So our thinking then is to take advantage of economies of scale and to do a singular borrowing with two parts. The first part, Part A if you would, or one right there, is that 5 million taxable permanent reimbursement borrowing. That's the 15-year repayment. The second is roughly 2.5 to maybe upwards of 3 million of an interim facility. You'll notice I say utility and general government to keep it flexible, but that will allow you to move forward with the utility projects that still need some dollars and simultaneously look for lower cost money for the utilities and grants. So by doing both of these things together, we put ourselves on a pathway to taking care of your utility needs. And by the way, with the CIP that I talked about, I think it's very possible, if not probable, that the county administrator working with various department heads will find that there are future utility needs that we haven't even talked about tonight. But these are the most eminent. These are the ones that need, again, to be addressed, and that's why we're talking about them tonight. All right, next page. I'm almost done. Next steps. So we've got just 2 pages here. It's broken out up to October 20th, and then the next page will go past for the rest of the calendar year. We're recommending that this comprehensive plan starts and gets your approval tonight as a board. And as a result of that, it has to go through an EDA to formally be borrowed, just like we did with the emergency. That's something working with your staff and especially with your bond counsel and county attorney. And that meeting, as I understand it, is next Thursday night. We will be there, or my colleagues will be there to educate the EDA on this debt financing approach and to make it clear that the EDA has no liability. They are a conduit. That's their role solely. Our goal then is to get responses back on October 20th. Next page. And then to review them and be prepared to come in front of this board on October 28th with a formal recommendation. And then finally, if indeed we receive what we're hoping to receive, we will recommend that a special meeting of the EDA be held so they can also formally approve this and then close on all of this prior to December 1. So we would be on the road towards a long-range sustainable plan. We'd be on the road with reimbursing and filling back up the coffers of the unassigned fund balance. And again, we will put ourselves hopefully in a position that we will not need to do any RAN in 27, but only over time will we find that out for sure as the administrator sees how things really do move forward on the next several months. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Appreciate it. I don't know if Mr. Rogers wants to add anything, but I also would like to point out that Ms. Burrell from the Berkeley Group has been instrumental with your staff. So we appreciate that. We could not be here tonight and do this without her and your staff. So thank you.
I want to thank you for all the time and energy and effort in putting together this detailed package. I think it gives us an indication of our plans or a projected plan to how to move ahead with our financial stability. And I know I want to thank you. I want to definitely thank Mr. Rogers for being on board and the financial staff, as well as Ms. Betty for all the hard work and continuous work through systems and non-systems to pull this information together.
Mr. Rose,
Yes, sir.
who's directing the slides? Can we go back to the slide that showed the 3 major projects?
The four, I think you mean 4 major projects?
It was only a graph, or it was only pictures that showed the food pantry, the fire.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the utility. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So these are the projects that were basically funded in cash that put us in this
Not quite.
situation?
So the fire station, we did a borrowing for the fire station like 5 years ago. But that project, as best as we can see, was literally $3+ million over budget. And those dollars were ending up using cash that's how they took care of that. So that's part of yes, sir. So I want to make sure people know, yes, there was a financing, but what ultimately got the cost of it was greatly more than that.
Yes, sir. And do we have a cost associated with each of these pictures here? Like, say, Market 5 is 2 or 3 million, and the firehouse would be 5 million, or do we have those numbers?
Yeah, yes, the information that was compiled and that Davenport included in their report is where we derived that 7 million in available capital spending to make the recommendation of the 5 million. So we have an accounting of these projects for what has been spent on these projects.
Okay.
And just to add one more thing, as I understand, because I've not been involved with the projects, but I believe, and Ms. Burrell may be able to clarify, whether it's the food pantry or the Market 5, I know one of them, if perhaps both, had some grant dollars, but also had other needs beyond the grant dollars. So again, it's a combination, but we were able to, working with bond counsel, with the firm Sands Anderson, because ultimately they have to opine that this is going to be done the right way. They said, yes, we could see that there were indeed cash outlays over and above, let's say, borrowing or over and above grants, and that's how these things got finally built.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that both the food pantry and Market 5 receive grants. Am I correct in that statement, Mr. Rogers?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. Now, more specifically, can we get the exact cost associated with each of these pictures? Like a picture and a price tag, picture and a price tag?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's okay. Thank you. The utilities,
Yes, sir.
Wayside, well, let me go back.
It's on the screen, Mr. Patterson, that's what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Yep. The Wayside project, that one is not under DEQ consent order. That's in the first district, so that's good. All right. However, the county was awarded a grant to effectively fund 100% of the current estimated cost. Is that just the 3.3 million, or is that for all the utilities? I guess the question would be, what is the total amount?
That's the 3.3 as estimated for that project.
Okay.
Very specific, just like the Jerusalem for that project. They're very
Each of
specific.
those projects has their own grant that they received and
That's
that we
right.
were awarded.
Right. Yes, sir.
That answers my question. How many grants how many grants have the county been awarded for each of these projects? So each project has their own.
Yes, that's correct.
That's great news.
Which is why, like on Ruthville, as we said, you've got a grant for $500,000. It's possible there could be subsequent grants or subsequent dollars coming in from, let's say, like state revolving loan funds or things like that. But we can't be in a mode, especially since you're under consent order, to just say, we're going to wait for that. That won't work. We need to basically say, okay, we're going to take the initiative, we, the county, have the money available to show in good faith that we're going to move forward.
So,
That's part of it.
so have we received the grant and, well, have we received all of the money?
No, each of these projects that have been identified are all in process. That's why we wanted to show the status and try to, as Mr. Rose just stated, make sure that we can share with DEQ that funding sources that we are pursuing, if they fall through, the county has a sustainable plan and a pathway forward to make sure that we can bring our facilities up to the standards that they need to be in.
And if we do that, that's how that consent order gets released, or?
At this point, yes, and at this point, we need to show something other than the progress that we've already made, because they're in various stages of DEQ enforcement, and so we need to show something additional other than the plans that we currently have. So this would help us as we continue to have conversations with our public works staff who has worked with DEQ, and so we need to be able to show them something else to be able to extend some of these consent orders in some cases, or to move forward with their enforcement to make sure that we're up to speed.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
And again, Mr. Bosch, we're not making any decisions tonight.
We're asking you to.
Okay.
We are.
I mean-
Yes, sir.
The motion that was discussed was just to authorize county staff and Davenport to go forward on an RFP process.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be any formal, tonight, there would be no formal approvals of an actual deal. That would be, they would come back with a bunch of proposals, and then you guys would have time to review that and approve, either approve that or not approve one of those deals.
Okay, so only thing that they're asking for is to move forward with,
Yes, sir.
with an
We are asking for
RFP.
that.
Correct, sir.
That's right.
Thank you.
And then the goal, as I said, would be, I think it's October 28th, don't hold me, I could see that second page, was when we would be back.
Gotcha. And the meeting with the EDA, is that a joint meeting with the board, or you guys are just meeting with the EDA separate?
The goal is to receive the go-ahead from the board this evening to proceed with the request for proposal, then have our financial advisors and staff attend the October 2nd EDA meeting to really discuss the role that the EDA can play in such a financing. While the RFPs are out, they will come back. The results of that will be brought to the board for action to proceed. Subsequent to that, then we would return to the EDA for action for them to proceed.
And I will not be there for that, but Kyle Laux, who you've met before, Kyle would be there next Thursday night.
Gotcha. And one last thing I just remembered while Mr. Rogers was speaking. Mr. Rhodes, you had mentioned that I guess the finances will be monitored on a weekly or monthly basis?
Yeah, not necessarily a weekly basis, but again, I think our goal here, because again, you've got monies coming in and out, and you cut checks on a certain period of time, but basically, from a perspective, we'd like to have some things done definitely every quarter, but to the extent that Mr. Rogers works with staff and can get some things done ultimately to monthly would be ideal. I don't know if that can be done that fast. It's very difficult. I'll defer, but ultimately, so.
Sure, yes, I was just going to say the example of that is the budget versus actual report that you have this evening. So that type of financial information on a monthly, regular, routine basis.
Gotcha.
And just one, because again, I think a lot of people don't realize you can't just look at what happens in 2 months and extrapolate that, go take 2 months, 6 times that. That's not how governmental accounting works or governmental funds work. That's unfortunately not the way it works, because there's a very uneven way in which money comes in and goes out by all governments. Doesn't matter if it's Charles City County or it's James City County. It's just the nature of the way a local government works. So again, part of all this can be what might look in a particular series of months like you're way over a budget. That's actually not a good way to think about it. It's not accurate. What you have to do is, and this is where, again, over time, Mr. Rogers, it's going to be very eye-opening how the entire year ends up, and then he can react to that in real time, especially come literally a year from now. But again, he didn't create the budget, and we've got to see indeed what is going to be over, under, what have you. But that'll come. And so, as I said, this is a process. But I do think, and I've worked with Mr. Rogers before, he, just like the information he gave you a few moments ago, he knows what he's doing, he knows how to move forward with that, but you can't do it all immediately. And so I will beg for a little patience for him and for your staff and for y'all, but as you can see, we promised we'd have some sustainable recommendations. Hopefully that graphic shows if things go according to plan, you're building that back up.
Yep.
If not, we'll be talking as to why in 6 months or so, maybe less.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
And Mr. Rogers, again, I would like to reiterate, whatever it is that you are monitoring on a weekly or monthly basis, I would like to also put my eyeballs on it as well.
Thank you for that comment. And so that's precisely the report. I know we updated the format this month, but that's precisely the report that the board, I'm committed to providing monthly to the Board of Supervisors.
I got you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, first, I want to thank Mr. Rogers for spearheading this, and I want to thank Davenport for their presentation, and thank Davenport and Ms. Burrell for your recommendations. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to motion that we direct the county administrator to work with Davenport to implement the cash restoration plan and proceed with the RFP for taxable reimbursement, financing, and interim credit.
This your motion, Mr. Hill?
Yes, it is.
And your vote, Mr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
My vote is aye also. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this brings us to our board comments.
What about, we don't have no announcement?
No, sir.
Board comments, gentlemen, anyone? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I do have a few comments and questions, actually. Are we going to?
Thank you, gentlemen. Ms. Burrell, thank you in particular. I know y'all leaving.
Are we addressing that?
Mr. Rogers,
Are we addressing this tonight? The website has been updated far as the early voting registration. All of the information is up there as of right now. It is right under the community highlights, which I believe it was Ms. Pat Davis who came and gave those comments and those concerns. So the early voting the early voting location has been changed to 13100 the Glebe Lane. That's the Ruthville High School in the old principal's office. That's the old Ruthville School. Am I saying that right? Old Ruthville High School?
Yes, sir.
That's your school,
That
right?
old.
No, right. Well, no. But it has been changed from this building, from this location, to Ruthville's location. And again, that's 1300 the Glebe. Most of you know it as the gym or the old Ruthville High School and the old principal's office. So those updates are definitely on the website now, nice and bold, so everybody can see it.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Anything else?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not going to waste any time. I do have a question as far as FOIA is concerned. Maybe council can help me out, or Mr. Rogers or so. Are we required to designate or identify a FOIA officer? And by designate, and like say that whoever that person is, that particular person's name?
We are required to have a FOIA officer, which is usually a position, part of that position is the FOIA officer. I mean, but that has, to be honest, that has changed a few times over the last last 6 months.
Gotcha.
I think it was most recently, I think it was HR, but I'm not sure if that still currently is.
Okay. So whoever that person is, we are required to have that person identified?
I think the way the system works is that FOIA things come in and that there's an automated system where that everything is generated through that so that records are maintained of the FOIA requests.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. And I would like for the board to be aware that I am in favor of the public financial workshop and especially the chartering of the Financial Advisory Committee. I've been outspoken on that, saying that we should create a citizens of some sort of a financial committee here in the county, whether it's comprised of our treasurer or Commissioner of Revenue, Finance Director, maybe a board member, or maybe even the county administrator mixed with some citizens. However that needs to come to, I wish to get the ball rolling on that as soon as possible. Also, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Chair, also, Mr. Rogers, if you remember, about 2 or 3 months ago, I asked about I believe it was Mr. Preston Atkins, one of our citizens. He was inquiring about the signage, the road signage on Lock Carey, the road signage on 5 and 106. No, I'm sorry, the road signage that's on Wayside Road and Route 5. And I asked about the cost associated with that signage, and you did reply back that's about $500 to get those signs put up. Now that we have the price of that, how can we move forward implementing that? Do we have to collect put a tray around here and start getting some donations for the?
I think there is at least $500 in the approved budget, so we'll work with Public Works to make that happen.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I believe that's all my comments for tonight, Mr. Hill.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to commend staff for the work that they are doing to get the ship going in the right direction. And as Davenport stated, it's not going to be an overnight fix, but I'm glad to see us moving in the direction that we're moving, and I commend staff for the work that they're doing.
I want to thank everyone for their continuous input, and especially as we progressed on moving towards a sustainable process. At a point, we will see that what the particular outcome in, and we'll be more partners together in understanding government functions, in particular the continued leadership of Mr. Rogers, which we thank you for, and Ms. Betty with the Berkeley Group, as well as the staff hanging in there, putting together data and information. And we look forward to having a sustainable government that we can function in a manner that all of us understand where we are, where our revenues are going, and what our projected future needs are. So I want to thank you for your attendance, in particular for your cordiality and your politeness. I very much appreciate that. Thank you, and we look forward to your continued participation, and we'll move and strive towards a sustainable financial situation.
Mr. Chairman, that's all for the evening. The meeting is adjourned.